Tonight, the noises detected in the North Atlantic as desperation grows over that missing submersible. The sounds heard both today and last night. Remotely operated search vehicles redirected toward them, but as the search intensifies, still no sign of the sub, with 5 people on board after it vanished on a deep-sea dive to the Titanic. Tonight, only about 12 hours of air remaining. We'll have late details in a moment. The dangerous historic heat wave in Texas. 26 million under heat alert as temperatures soar above 100. All-time record shattered. When will it end? The January 6th rioter who tased a police officer sentenced to more than 12 years in prison. A special counsel defends his conclusion that the FBI acted improperly in opening the Trump-Russia investigation. Democrats accusing him of running political interference for the former president. Chinese spies targeting American companies to steal cutting-edge technology. A CNBC investigation. The nation's report card showing a stunning drop in test scores in math and reading. The pandemic's devastating impact on education. The government sues Amazon, claiming it duped users into signing up for Prime. And how people in a small town fought back and put on a show with pride.
This is NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt.
Good evening and welcome. Let's get right to the search for that missing sub and those noises picked up by Canadian sound buoys. Could it be a sign of life from the 5 people aboard that ill-fated Titanic expedition? The Coast Guard calling the noises inconclusive as Navy experts analyze the data. As for the amount of time potential survivors may have, officials calculate breathable air will run out around 7 a.m. Eastern Time tomorrow. That's assuming the sub, known as Titan, is still intact. Tonight, more rescue ships have gathered in the search zone, including some carrying remotely operated vehicles capable of exploring extreme depths. The life and death drama unfolding hundreds of miles from nearest land has captivated people across the world. As we learn more about warnings previously raised about the safety of the tiny vessel. But for now, responders are laser focused on what they say remains a search and rescue operation. Tom Costello is at the Search Command Center with the very latest.
900 miles east of Massachusetts, Canadian air crews continue to drop sonar buoys and report hearing unusual noise in the water both yesterday and today. Planes, ships, and drones are now aggressively searching a grid near the sunken Titanic. But so far, nothing. The Navy now reviewing all sonar contacts. Can you describe what the noise sounds like that they're hearing?
The noises have been described as banging noises, but again, they have to put the whole picture together in context, and they have to eliminate potential man-made sources other than the Titan.
Underwater acoustics experts caution the ocean is noisy. Heavy ship traffic, even fish and whales can sound like tapping. But the noise also means hope that the 5 men on board the sub are still alive, trying to communicate.
I don't think I'll be able to sleep unless we get some positive news.
In Pakistan, Muhammad Hashim is a friend of businessman Shahzada Dawood, who's on board with his son Suleiman.
I'm just watching TV for the last 48 hours and just keeping my fingers crossed and still have a hope that he will come back. Inshallah, Allah will make some miracle happen and he will make it.
The Titan sub is about the size of a minivan with room for 5 and a toilet with a privacy curtain. This Ocean Gate photo shows it's relatively cramped. Only one person can fully extend his legs at a time. Crews generally have sandwiches and water for a 6 to 8 hour trip. Aaron Newman is an Ocean Gate investor who's gone to the Titanic in Titan.
We're going where humans have rarely gone. So, we're pushing the limits of things. And so, it's not a Disney World ride.
But a former employee mutually settled a lawsuit with Ocean Gate after being fired for claiming the sub wasn't certified to go so deep. And 36 submersible experts expressed concern that the design was potentially catastrophic. Today, Discovery Channel host Josh Gates tweeted, "Ultimately, I walked away from a huge opportunity to film Titanic due to my safety concerns with the Ocean Gate platform." Meanwhile, a French deep dive robot and its operators are arriving on site now. NBC's Ron Allen is in St. John's, Newfoundland.
Calm here in the harbor, but reports of extremely challenging weather conditions at the site. Winds gusting to 30 miles per hour, ocean swells of 6 to 7 feet.
This is a search and rescue mission, 100%. We are smack dab in the middle of search and rescue, and we'll continue to put every available asset that we have in an effort to find the Titan and the crew members.
And Tom joining me now. Tom, the Coast Guard has really laid out a timeline of what we're up against.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. In fact, they're laying out the timeline here as the fact that we may see this crew lose oxygen sometime after 7 a.m. Meanwhile, more ships are rushing into the search zone, Canadian, U.S., and French. And the Canadians have a hyperbaric chamber on board one of those ships, Lester, to help in the event that somebody needs a decompression chamber.
All right, Tom Costello, thank you. And joining us now is oceanographer and deep sea explorer David Gallo. Mr. Gallo, with reference to these noises that have been heard, are there protocols in the deep diving community for signaling for help or distress?
Not really, no, none that I've seen that have been formal. I mean, it's just something that people in the know would do. It's someone like Paul-Henri Nargeolet, who's supposedly on that submarine, would do something like that because he knows that we would be listening for something like that. But there's no set protocol.
Yeah, we've been referring to this amount of breathable air on board. Are there ways the passengers might be able to extend or conserve their air supply?
Well, my guess is that if Paul-Henri is, he would have them sleeping as best they could under these circumstances. Being as little active as possible is the best way. It's very cold. It should be really cold at this point, and I'm assuming that would keep the oxygen intake low. I could be wrong about that, but yeah, there's certainly, you don't want to expend it by being overly active, but I don't know how you could do that in a submarine.
If in fact the shell of the sub was breached and imploded, will searchers be able to find any evidence of its destruction?
Hard to say, Lester. My guess is, I thought about this a lot. Is it just going to be crumbled little bits, or is it going to be big chunks here and there? And my guess is that there will be something of size that can be looked at forensically. Yeah.
Yeah, I know it's a very grim topic, but David Gallo, thank you for coming on with us tonight. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.
All right, let's turn to that massive heat wave baking the southern plains with dangerous triple-digit temperatures as a so-called heat dome over Texas causes temperatures to soar. Miguel Almaguer is in Houston for us tonight. Miguel, good evening.
Lester, good evening. Unbearable, miserable, and brutal only begin to describe the conditions here. This region has been cooking for a week, and now the National Weather Service says there's no end in sight to this oppressive heat.
Tonight, a blistering, record-breaking heat wave is scorching 26 million across much of the southern plains. The potentially deadly conditions pushing temperatures as much as 15 degrees above normal.
Literally, we're having to sit in the cold baths just to cool ourselves down.
The extraordinary heat and intense humidity turning Texas into a red-hot oven with skyrocketing conditions between 110 and 120 degrees. In San Antonio Tuesday, the heat index soared to an alarming 116, topping an all-time record the city set just 5 days ago. Dallas tied its 43-year-old record at 117. Today in Houston, it's forecasted to feel like a scorching 112. With little relief overnight, emergency crews are bracing for a surge of 911 calls.
Make sure that you don't leave your child in a car. In this type of weather, they won't have long.
The unrelenting temperatures straining the power grid as the state set a June record for energy demand. The historic heat buckling roads from the Lone Star State to Louisiana. Tonight, some are wishing this first day of summer was also the last. Miguel Almaguer, NBC News, Houston.
In Washington, a January 6th rioter who attacked a police officer with a stun gun was sentenced to 12.5 years in prison. The judge called Daniel Rodriguez a one-man army of hate for attacking police officers and destroying property. He pleaded guilty to a variety of charges related to the attack. And on Capitol Hill, the former special counsel investigating the FBI's Russia probe against then-candidate Donald Trump, telling lawmakers his findings included sobering missteps by the FBI. Garrett Hake now with that story.
Special counsel John Durham facing a 5-hour grilling. defending his explosive conclusion that the FBI acted improperly in its opening of the 2016 Trump-Russia probe.
We found troubling violations of law and policy.
Mr. Durham arguing that the available evidence did not support opening the full investigation known as Crossfire Hurricane.
The FBI opened up Crossfire Hurricane without speaking to the people who provided the initial information. Is that true?
That's correct.
Was there adequate predication for the FBI to open Crossfire Hurricane as a full investigation?
On July 31st, in my view, based on our investigation, there was not a legitimate basis to open as a full investigation.
And Durham saying he found anti-Trump sentiment among the FBI brass who launched the investigation.
There are some individuals who clearly expressed a personal bias.
The Mueller report ultimately found no conspiracy between the Trump campaign and Russia, but resulted in 34 people criminally charged. Democrats noting Durham's 4-year investigation produced only 3 criminal cases, including 2 acquittals, and accusing the Bill Barr appointee of running political interference for former President Trump.
Mr. Durham, your report reads like a defense of the Trump campaign and an attack on Hillary Clinton because that's exactly what it is.
A DOJ Inspector General report says the opening of the Russia investigation was justified, and the FBI says they've instituted dozens of reforms since. Lester?
All right, Garrett, thanks. Tonight, a new flashpoint between the U.S. and China after President Biden called China's President Xi a dictator at a fundraising event. China blasting the comments as absurd and irresponsible. Tensions rising even after Secretary of State Blinken's meeting with Xi. And one of the biggest disputes is over espionage, including Chinese spies targeting corporate America. It's the focus of a new CNBC documentary. Here's Eamon Javers.
The story begins in 2017 with a simple message on LinkedIn. A GE aviation engineer named David Zhang, working on the company's newest jet engine, opened a message from a university official in China.
Well, it was an invitation to come speak at a university about his subject matter.
So that's prestigious.
I think he was flattered. They were willing to fund the trip.
During the trip, Zhang was introduced to a man who said he was part of a local science and technology association.
The alias he uses is Chu Wei, but it's Zhu Yanjun, who works for the Ministry of State Security.
Xu Yanjun is a spy. GE and law enforcement officials discovered the engineer had taken company material to China to help him prepare for the presentation. Material so sensitive that you need a license to take it out of the country. Executives summoned the engineer to a meeting at GE headquarters.
He initially met with the GE security individuals, and they then stepped out of the room and the FBI came in.
The engineer agreed to cooperate with the FBI, who used him to communicate with Xu.
One of the things that Zhu sent to the GE engineer was a shopping list of things that he was looking for.
And so this is the actual ask.
He's asking for the types of software programs they're using.
Ready to move in, the FBI had the engineer set up a meeting with Xu in Brussels. That's where Xu was arrested. FBI Director Christopher Wray has been warning American industry for years about the threat from China.
What's at stake here, do you think, for the U.S. economy?
American quality of life, American innovation, ultimately American national security.
Experts say technology from aircraft manufacturers is one of China's biggest targets.
They know they can manufacture this plane at 30 cents on the dollar and sell it cheaper on the global market. But it's not just the theft, it's what happens after that. The big damage is if that U.S. company could probably have 4 to 6 manufacturing plants in the U.S. and hire 100,000 people.
That's the hole in the U.S. economy.
That is the long-term existential threat, is that those companies don't get to make plants and hire people.
In a statement, China's embassy in Washington, D.C. said the Chinese government has never participated in or supported anyone in any form in stealing commercial secrets. We welcome U.S. and other foreign companies to access the Chinese market, share development dividends, and work together for a stronger world economy. Xu's attorney declined CNBC's interview request. So did David Zhang, who was fired by GE in early 2018. As for Xu, he was convicted on 4 counts of attempted economic espionage and trade secret theft. Eamon Javers, NBC News, Washington.
You can watch China's corporate spy war tonight at 10 Eastern on CNBC. In 60 seconds, the alarming new report about how our nation's kids are doing in school, plus the crackdown on Amazon over Prime subscriptions. There is alarming news about how our nation's kids are doing in school, with a new report showing math and reading scores for 13-year-olds at the lowest in decades. As Stephanie Gosk reports, it's a crisis educators say will have ripple effects for years.
Across all regions and affecting all kids, new test scores show dramatic learning loss. The single largest drop in math scores for 13-year-olds since the National Assessment of Educational Progress began 50 years ago. Down 9 points from 2019 before the pandemic to the fall of 2022. Reading is not much better, down 4 points.
This is a crisis that America cannot ignore. The long-term educational crisis facing our students has by far outpaced the physical threat that COVID ever presented to them.
Alberto Carvalho is the superintendent for LA Unified School District, the second largest in the country, where they are focusing on summer school, teacher training, and a longer school year to make up lost ground.
The recovery needs to be swift, needs to be strategic, with the right investments and the right approaches to teaching kids.
Maryland middle school teacher Shannon O'Connor says many of her students are no longer engaged.
There still has to be some expectation of responsibility on the student's part. And for a large chunk of them, that has kind of gone to the wayside.
How difficult is it to get them back on track if you don't have that buy-in?
It's really hard. We try to make it as fun as possible while still keeping to our content and the standards that we have to teach.
An age group way behind heading into the critical high school years, with the school system still struggling to get them ready. Stephanie Gosk, NBC News.
Still ahead for us here this evening, the new lawsuit against Amazon saying it tricked shoppers into paying for Prime. Regulators are cracking down on Amazon with a new lawsuit alleging the company illegally tricked customers into paying for Prime memberships, making them tough to cancel. Gabe Gutierrez has details.
Amazon Prime has more than 200 million customers worldwide, and tonight the Federal Trade Commission says the online retail giant duped people into signing up for the service and then made it extremely tough to cancel.
I think for any subscription service, it shouldn't be difficult to cancel, especially for a company like Amazon that's making a lot of money from a lot of consumers.
The lawsuit against Amazon follows a 2-year FTC investigation. In it, the FTC says Amazon used manipulative, coercive, or deceptive user interface designs known as dark patterns to trick consumers into enrolling in automatically renewing Prime subscriptions. Amazon Prime customers usually pay $139 a year and get free expedited shipping on millions of items, plus other discounts and access to streaming movies and music. The lawsuit is the most aggressive action against the company so far by the FTC's chair, who has been critical of Amazon in the past.
It's 59 degrees with rain.
Separately, Amazon had agreed to pay $25 million last month to settle FTC claims that Alexa devices had illegally collected children's data. Today's lawsuit, the latest part of a broader effort by regulators to limit the power of tech companies.
This is a big signal to the rest of the tech companies that you better clean up your act. Make it easier for people to unsubscribe. Make sure customers know what they are getting and what they're signing up for.
Amazon, meanwhile, says the FTC's claims are false. The company says it's clear and simple for customers to both sign up for and cancel their Prime membership. And it looks forward to proving its case in court. Lester.
All right, Gabe, thanks. Up next, fighting for pride. The small town getting ready to celebrate a big milestone. Finally, fighting through the fear, a triumph for one small town getting ready for their very first Pride celebration. Here's Joe Fryer.
In the heart of Massachusetts, you'll find North Brookfield, a rural town with a population just under 5,000.
How much do you love this community?
I love this community more than I have words to even tell you.
Sue Lyons has called this place home since the 70s.
When I first moved to North Brookfield, I'll be very frank with you, I was practically the only person I knew that was gay.
Times have changed. This weekend, this quiet field will be plastered in rainbows as North Brookfield holds its first small-town pride.
It's been a long time coming, to be quite honest with you.
But organizers with the Rural Justice Network never thought this tiny town would make national headlines, all because their celebration features a drag performance.
we've encountered a lot of hate.
Anthony Bobenzi, also known as Nikita LaFemme, is one of the performers.
What does this hate look like?
It comes in all different forms, people saying stuff online, threats.
Amid a nationwide drag backlash, in April, North Brookfield's town board voted to ban the drag show, calling it adult entertainment.
The majority of these shows do include sexual innuendo.
The ACLU quickly responded, calling that decision unconstitutional, with LGBTQ groups arguing these shows are not sexually explicit.
At these small town events, they are very tame performances. It just shows people that it's okay to be themselves.
The board did reverse course, clearing the way for the show to go on, but the threats remain.
Personally, I do get scared.
I think people would understand if you said, I'm going to sit this one out.
That's not in me. I'm a fighter.
They know pride is rooted in protest, inspired by the 1969 Stonewall Uprising.
I am not afraid, and I will refuse to be afraid.
A spirit that still echoes across towns big and small. Joe Fryer, NBC News, North Brookfield, Massachusetts.
For more, watch Pride 2023 Out Front, streaming now. That's Nightly News. I'm Lester Holt. Thanks for watching, everyone. Please take care of yourself and each other. Good night. Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.